Hello, welcome to another episode of Red Helix Cyber Focus. Today I am sat down with Aleks Gorkowienko from Risk. Alex has got 20 years experience, including working in some huge organizations such as PA Consulting, delivering pen testing. We're going to be talking about security testing today and the importance of security testing alongside the other elements of a security technology stack, of your people, process, and technology elements that you're using to manage risk within business. Aleks, it's great to have you on the podcast, someone with such a vast amount of experience. And we've had a really great discussion prior to this, planning what we were going to talk about. The main thing that struck me, Aleks, was your explanation of black hat and white hat. Why do we have those hats in cybersecurity, and what does it mean?
Thank you very much, Tom. It's great to be here. Let's start from these very basic things because everybody hears say, yeah, black hats and white hats, and these are good guys and bad guys. So where it comes from? So surprisingly, the answer is very easy. Many, many years ago, someone picked this from old Hollywood movies without sound, where the good characters were having white hats and bad obviously had black hats. So that's why it just was kind of borrowed, and now we have it all over.
Brilliant. All of the industry parties and things like that that are named after these different colored hats. I think most people probably have no idea where it came from. So you are head of security testing at Risk, which is a Red Helix company that delivers all sorts of security testing. It's great to have your knowledge and experience so that we can have this discussion and bring to life for those listening the elements of security testing, a background to it, what's really important, how we can relate it to today. We know companies are spending millions of pounds on their security tooling. They're putting a huge amount of effort into creating security programs around the layers of people, process, and technology. People are very compliance driven. With that as a background, let's first talk about the threat landscape and why there's a heightened importance at the moment for security testing and what your take is on that.
Well, the reality is that cyber risks are evolving rapidly, and they were evolving all the time, but probably a recent 5-10 years, it just almost goes in geometric expansion. We have new technologies with much faster computational power in our pockets. Forget about regular computers. So lots of things that were not available for hackers of all kind 5-10 years ago, it's now in our pocket. So this makes also things much easier. And obviously, it's almost impossible not to mention AI. So AI changes the whole landscape completely because now exploits could be just easily downloaded from the web and used by inexperienced attackers who just want to have fun, or call it fun, or call them script kiddies. But now those script kiddies, they actually can have they can run very, very sophisticated attacks with one mouse click because everything could be driven by AI. So this complicates things a lot. So another aspect here is that many, many years ago, hacking was more for fun. It's no more. It's a business. It's a well-organized, very profitable, obviously completely illegal, but it's a business. So everything can be monetized. Stealing data, reselling data, all type of attacks. It's all about money in the end. So the risks are very serious and very, very real.
I heard a fantastic statistic just this morning, listening to a podcast, and it was talking about if the collection of global ransomware gangs was its own economy, it would have a GDP that would sit third in the world behind, I think it was the US and China, which it puts into perspective the huge financial sums of money that this sort of activity is generating. The number of incidents per year is still going up. So irrespective of the amount of money that businesses are spending on their technology and the processes they're putting in place, we're still fighting a losing battle. Having an extra layer or a close understanding of what we can do with security testing could enhance people's security stacks to try and break this line of success that these criminals have. It's trend on the discussions I'm having with people on this podcast around AI is changing the game rapidly. It's bringing huge amount of capability to anyone who fancies having a dabble at raising some money through delivering a ransomware payload, for example. Off the back of that, what is security testing for? For someone who's an IT director or a CISO, they do their one take for compliance pen test a year. break it down for the listener. What do you describe security testing as being for?
Let's start from what security testing is in general, right? And there are different types of security tests. One very common is called vulnerability assessment. This is when some automated tool is run by a consultant or security professional. They run the tool against publicly available internet-facing customers' assets, and the tool is probing different elements of these assets, different ports. By probing, it sends predefined queries and checking the response. If response matches any own vulnerability, the tool makes tick inside the list and say, oh, that probably is vulnerable, but it's not. It cannot be guaranteed that it's always probability, if I can call it this way. So the outcome of VA or vulnerability assessment is the reports made by the tool. It typically could have something called false positives. So when the tool think there is a vulnerability, but actually it's not, or false negative when the tool says that there is no vulnerability, but actually it's there. So that's why, yes, it's good for profiling, good for checking the state of the land, a starting point for more advanced assessment. But I wouldn't say VA is something that is fully 100% reliable. Right? It's a good starting point. It's good for maintaining the baseline. The next step is something called penetration testing. And penetration testing is where you have a security consultant, someone called ethical hacker, or famous white hat, someone who uses the same tools, same techniques, same everything as those bad guys, but doing it in fully controlled manner without any intention to do any harm, without putting the system down, probing the system and repeating or trying all steps that real malicious actor would do. Therefore, we're discovering all these very difficult to find vulnerabilities, or let's say logical vulnerabilities. So the only keen eye of someone who has experience can only discover that. Lots of tools, lots of techniques, and deep knowledge of the exploitation techniques is required. So you need to stay on the top of the wave all the time. Monitor what is currently available, what those bad guys are doing, what techniques are in use, and know how to apply this to the security context of whatever web application or infrastructure you're testing. So these are main kind of two different realms. One is almost completely automated or semi-automated. The other is manual. Why companies might need it? First off, compliance, because there are lots of regulations in different industries. Some are more generic, like GDPR, or requirements for banking industry, where you're obliged to do it annually, for example, annual tests. Or you can have genuine need to ensure that your systems are properly secured, especially considering that the malicious actors, they're changing their techniques every day. Well, the reality is, even if you conduct proper in-depth, sophisticated security assessment, you cannot guarantee that is completely free from vulnerabilities. It can be free for the moment you hand over the report to the client, because a moment later, someone can find something called 0 day. 0 day is a vulnerability that just found and there is no remedy. If this thing is in the wild, this is a serious problem. First of all, it costs insane amount of money because it can be sold to anyone, because every malicious actor or even government, they can monetize it. So it costs money, and obviously it may create serious damage because there is no remedy.
That's fantastic insight. There's quite a lot of discussion in the cyber world right now about these 0 days potentially surfacing and coming out of the wild and being used to influence the geopolitical situation that's ongoing. What we're saying is that this penetration testing, when you're using techniques that are known now, you're preparing and building readiness against those known threats. But you also mentioned that you're preparing for the unknown. And that's the underlying nature of a lot of these conversations that we're having in the security world at the moment, is there's an unknown coming around how AI is going to proliferate people's ability to exploit software. You've probably seen some of that in the testing and in the incidents that you've got experience of. Have you got any vignettes that spring to mind around current situations that businesses could find themselves in based on the new threat?
So there is no guarantee. What you can do, what we are after, is just lowering the probability of being exploited. That's the objective. Someone who says you will be 100% secure, it's just lying. It's simply impossible. But lowering the probability, this is technically possible. I can give you another analogy. It's one of the kind of golden rule of cryptography, right? Every cryptographic system is breakable. So it's not about having a non-breakable system. It's just making it so difficult, or it can be broken in, let's say, 10 zillion years, not in 5 minutes. It's exactly the same thing with cybersecurity. There are so many new attacks that are coming every day. Millions of people are, potential attackers exploring, playing with different systems, playing with modern technology, and finding the way how things could be exploited. You can't predict all options and all attack vectors, but you can, first of all, maintain your security baselines. Don't make stupid, childish mistakes. This is almost like ABC of cybersecurity. So if you reach the baseline, you'll automatically cut not even 80%, probably even 90% of all risks. And then you can fine tune what you're going to do with all these more sophisticated things. I would say that putting focus on maintaining baseline, regular tests, at least annually, that would dramatically reduce the risk of being exploited. Then you make life so complicated for potential attackers that you just deter them. You should really spend additional days or hours or weeks on exploiting this particular company or this business. They're very opportunistic. If the trade-off is not in their favor, we'll just abandon. And that's exactly what you're after.
I just want to tease that out a little bit more. You mentioned there about seeing people making basic mistakes, and I've had quite a few discussions with people in the rounds about this. Is that we spend quite a lot of time avoiding, and the phrase I would use is calling the baby ugly, and actually that can be really damaging to someone's security situation if they're not looking at it without their rose-tinted glasses, especially if it's something that they have created, they own, they've implemented. It's very difficult for them to accept that there might be some pretty basic errors that have been baked into their logic or the way that they've designed it. Is that something that you see? And if that's true, what are these basic things that you're seeing in your pen testing, recent history where you're doing these tests?
For example, misconfigurations, actually a dozen of them. So misconfigurations or taking standard default configuration of anything, software or hardware, thinking it works, don't touch. So that's really, really bad approach. Another is lack of sanitization of user input and user output. It's across web applications, infrastructure, APIs, hardware, very basic things, but hackers know about it. This is their bread and butter. So it's very naive to think I have some hidden folder somewhere and probably nobody will ever find it. Wrong. Hackers know these things. They have dedicated tools for this. Whatever you think it's hidden, it's not. Ask professionals. Come to companies like Red Helix, Risk Crew. Ask us to come and do tests for you, and that we'll see. Right? I can't tell you if your system is secure or not till it's tested. So that's very important, that the default approach to anything will be, yes, it can be hacked. The question is how, right? What the complexity? Is it very complex or very easy, right? If it's very easy, you are in trouble. It's very complex, then this means that your system might be hacked only by state actors, but are you interesting for state actors? If not, then you can say you are relatively safe. But if you have so many childish mistakes, then it's asking for trouble.
You've just made me think of like military analogy, in that in the military you've got like defense intelligence, where you've got lots of people that are very clever and they think like the adversary. Their whole job is to think about and understand what the adversary is doing, why they're doing it, and how you can create advantage based on what they're doing, what you know about them. And effectively, penetration testers and security testers, they are the industry's intelligence network, where they're thinking about the adversary. They're rehearsing in the same way that an adversary does, by testing their techniques that they're learning, by looking up what the latest intelligence is about how the adversary is acting, and replicating it in environments to help people protect themselves against it. I think that's really fascinating way of shaping what people's perceptions are about penetration testers and what you're paying for when you buy one of those services. We also talked about AI generated code, and your experience in penetrating testing AI generated code and the challenges that's going to bring.
So obviously this is everywhere. We have lots of models and AI driven systems for generating code, and suddenly everyone can become a software developer, and we have many people who are saying software development as a direction of education probably will die, which I personally I don't think so, as because I myself is a former software developer. I don't think so, because still professional keen eyes of someone who understands the code and understands security of how it should be written. It's very important. I really like the fact that we have these systems that could help us write code, right? Because it can do like a bulk of stuff for us, which is great. But we absolutely, under no circumstances, we can allow this to be used in production without any supervision, without any control oversight from someone who understands what secure coding is. There are secure coding principles and lots of books, the guidelines, the frameworks. Microsoft has dozens of them. You have to understand it. It's difficult to say if AI will implement it. Maybe yes, maybe no. I'm a practitioner. I'm from the very pragmatic point of view. Until I test, until I check, I don't know. And I will never tell, oh, it's excellent, because it works, don't touch. It's a very, very bad approach, because probably majority of things that you will code now with any of systems available in the market will work. So we'll say, oh, excellent, right? So put the production, put it straight online. It's a really, really huge risk. Reputational, because if you put on live system, live customer data, you're asking for trouble. And people who are on the other side of the barricade, they know about these things, because they're also using this exactly the same systems for writing code. They understand those mistakes better than developers, because the developers have their own pressure, make the system go live as soon as possible. But attackers will just rip the side effects of this.
It's going to become a greater challenge before we start making a regain on this, because the use of AI and AI generated code is going to proliferate really quickly, probably before we get to a point where businesses truly secure what they're doing with it and truly understand the implications of what's being created, and the sheer quantity use of AI generated code, but also the potential risk of personal identifiable information, professional copyright material being put into LLMs, for example. How many businesses are truly securing that yet, or have realized how much their employees are using AI? It's going to be interesting in the months to come to see how that develops. Certainly, we're having lots of discussion about people who know their employees are using AI, but they don't quite understand how they can secure that, because they don't want to take it away, because they recognize it's a significant enhancer to their employee output. And if you're a coder, that can be seen in exactly the same fashion. It means you can code something so much more quickly. You've just got to make sure that the due diligence is done to make sure that code is secure. So I think that leads quite nicely on to the next point. We've spoken up until now about very software-based penetration testing. But something that you guys do is also social engineering testing, and that's even more important given the change of the current threat landscape. It's important to mention the identity crisis that we're going through. In the CrowdStrike threat report that's just been released, it's talking about 88% of breaches in the last 12 months were malware free, i.e. they've approached through a different type of attack vector, and that has generally been through identity. It's something that you guys do at Risk Crew, is that social engineering testing. So
social engineering is an important part of our assessments of red teaming type. Why it's called red team. So it's penetration test is about one specific asset or group of assets. Test web application or bunch of publicly available, I don't know, services or IP addresses. Red teaming is about testing the security posture of the whole organization. So can you get inside as a malicious attacker, right? Can you bypass the reception desk? Can you tailgate someone, right? Can you get to the office? Can you plant little Raspberry Pi and create a Wi-Fi access point? It's much wider, much larger. So, I don't know, making malicious calls, asking people to disclose sensitive information, or credentials, and that's exactly what we also do. Historically, staff exercises via good interpersonal skills, someone who know how to talk to people, who understand how to feel in real time, how to get this information from someone. Obviously, people are different. We have people in our company who can do that part. I can make kind of a parallel to obviously to AI now, because AI is used by attackers wildly everywhere. I'm not surprised by these statistics at all, because it's easy and everyone knows that famous slogan, right? People are the weakest element in the security chain. That is actually true. And AI, unfortunately, in this case, it helps a lot to attackers, because they can fine-tune emails, messages, everything to individuals. Because before you had to manually go through all publicly available information about the individual, if you want to do something called spear phishing, it's targeted to specific individual, not mass mailing. So, and it got to such extent then, let's say the email sent to, let's say, or impersonating the CEO reflects the way he writes emails based on public information was stolen. AI makes it way easier because you provide a bulk of information, you write correct prompt, and you will have in the end the correct email. And this email or message would look very, very legitimate. On the top of this, if you consider these multimedia options that we have, where AI can create images and video in real time, and that's real problem, because we are coming to completely new world where nothing can be trusted, right? You're talking to someone on Teams, and you can't be sure this is really the person you're talking to. Or someone is calling you and saying, look, I'm in trouble, just grab your car and go somewhere, or just send me some money, or we are your business partner, right? There's a problem with your payments, and you don't know for sure. So you need to change a lot of procedures, how you interact with people, how you interact with business partners, even how you can interact within your family. I've spoke with some CFO recently, and he said, look, my family and we set up some secret keyword, and someone is calling, you need to say this keyword so I know this is my wife and my son is calling. This is a reality, and you have to be prepared. So if you move it to the business reality, what's the difference? There is no difference. It's very easy to pay the invoice that it just looks like invoice, but someone can swap, and there are multiple cases when the invoice is intercepted on the fly and just the account number is changed. Yeah. And account number is God knows where, Cayman Island. You make a payment, customer says, where is my money? And you rip your hair off.
People talk about security culture, and there's a discussion that comes around every now and again around how important is security culture really if all of the technology is so good. But actually, this is a brilliant example of why security culture and having that culture in a business is so important, because it will come down to the human to make sure that they follow the right processes, to verify, to follow up it for a different means of communication, things that software just isn't able to do at the moment, and to make that human-based judgment. If you're spending a lot of time and effort building that security culture, actually social engineering testing and or red teaming, as you just called it, is a brilliant way of giving you a gauge as to how far that is permeated through a business. On top of your annual penetration testing for your compliance, maybe you're doing it more often based on changes to your environment, but also and other requirements, but also red teaming your social engineering and red teaming the culture that you're building to really understand what's happening and how far your policies are having an effect. That's a really good example as to the importance of that type of testing. So we've covered capabilities, we've covered a bit around testing, different types of testing, why they're important. Let's bring it back to the business. For the audience of security practitioners, we now need to really hone in on how we communicate this message to the business. Probably a lot of people are quite used to having their annual pen test or maybe getting a vulnerability assessment. But if you're going back to the business with an increased spend for this, how are you putting it into business language to demonstrate the return on investment that you're going to get from this service?
I would start from very, very generic things. First, I would say that in every organization, there should be someone who is formally in charge, who's taking responsibility for security at the executive level. Second thing, it's really less about technology, it's more about the culture. It's absolutely critical that within the organization, there is a culture built where everyone can say about security without fear that they will be punished. Everyone can make mistakes. And especially considering that there are so many different types of attacks, and technology is also changing every day. It's impossible to predict all types of attacks. So that's why it should be completely openly said. It could happen, but what is important, so we are prepared, we know what to do, we can communicate if we see any sort of deviation from the rule, and everyone knows their role. We know what to disconnect from the web. We know to contain the environment that we think is suspicious, etc., etc., etc. So there should be procedures in place, open culture, encouraging any information about any sort of security deviations in any business process. So that's the key thing that should be attended everywhere. With regards to return on investment, if you check any statistics, if you Google the cost of breach, you will see how large it is, and you can just Google cost of breach for SMBs or for enterprise. It will be millions and
And
millions.
it's asking those questions, isn't it? How long could we last without this system? If this system was down, how much would it cost us per day, even per hour? And that starts to build up the data behind a risk and also provide a business case and an economic argument as to how much it would be worth to secure that system. And pen testing is one, or security testing is one way of adding a layer to that level of security. There's something else as well around sort of mergers and acquisitions, cyber insurance implication, regulatory requirements. All of these things as well help to build that economic argument for security testing.
Security is, yes, it is a cost, but it's enabler for your business. Its ability to operate, expand your business safely. Any sort of attack or public exposure will damage your reputation, damage your business relationships. It's like MOT for the car. It is cost, but nobody really think about it. It just has to be spent. It's a normal, regular thing. You have to put it to your schedule and think about reaching this and maintaining the security baseline.
MOT for a car is a great analogy because if you have an accident and your car's not MOT'd, your insurance is not going to pay out, right? It's got some real hidden benefits to having an MOT. Obviously, it's illegal not to have an MOT in the UK, so we'd always recommend everyone getting an MOT. And let's throw that out there first. But when we pull that into the cybersecurity landscape, all those things that you talked about, cyber insurance, reputational damage, business continuity, those are phrases that the CFO really cares about. And when you weave those into the business case for enhanced testing, more regular testing, etc., that's what's going to really start to trigger that return on investment discussion. We also talked quite in depth about future of security testing and some of the really cool things that you and your team are looking at the moment. It'd be great to understand where you think it's going. There's obviously tools on the market and people claiming they do autonomous testing and how you think that compares to a human-led testing. It would be great to hear your thoughts on that.
It's quite a popular topic, autonomous penetration testing, but in my opinion, at this time, we are rather talking about a bit more advanced VA rather than full-blown PT. First of all, because real penetration testing is completely context-driven, I'm not entirely sure if AI can capture all the nuances of specific security context. And sometimes there might be elements that are completely remote from each other and require experience. So someone who can connect the dots rather than machine. Maybe at certain moments in time it would happen, probably not yet. So I would rather see this as another tool in our tool set, very good tool, but it still would require human oversight and someone who will monitor and use this as any other tool. So we can combine it together, we can make analysis and shorten the time of assessment, gives us additional avenues, additional elements that we can actually consider during the assessment. But I would be a bit reluctant to say it's a machine, I run it 24/7, it will find everything for me. I don't think we are there yet.
There's benefits, though, to having semi-automated AI-assisted testing, or something that we also sort of brought up in discussion. How does that work, and what additional capabilities did it bring to you as a penetration tester?
You can build relatively easy tools or use tools that are open source to manage or orchestrate usage of the other tools for testing web applications or infrastructure. It's almost like a junior pen tester that can do some stuff for you. You can delegate to AI some routine things and have very nice structured outcome. So instead of long reports where you meticulously have to check, is it false positive, false negative, it shortens the path to decision from you as a human. This is interesting, this is interesting, this is not interesting.
It's like AI human teaming. We're seeing that all over the place where even analogies earlier on in this discussion where actually using AI can significantly enhance what an individual person can achieve within a certain amount of time or within their knowledge set, right? Can enhance you. And it's about understanding how far you let that relationship go either way. To make sure you find a balance that is creating more benefit. Aleks, it's been fascinating having this discussion. What would really wrap it up is the final question. We could have gone in many different ways to this, but given that we spent a lot of time having a discussion around the real benefits of different types of testing, different types of frequency for testing, reasons why it's going to benefit a business, on top of broader security stack or security situation as a layer. It would be great to talk through for a security practitioner, maybe an IT director, a CISO, something like that. They get their annual pen test to achieve their compliance obligations. They've listened to this and they've thought, this is really interesting. There's a call to action here. Reach out to Aleks at Risk Crew. We've got a whole range of services that we can provide, and we can have that return on investment discussion. Someone thinking, I get my annual pen test. What's the next step for that person? What's the, next thing that they can do to enhance on what they're currently doing?
Pen test is certainly good, but the desired outcome is understanding what is in the report. So coming back again to the starting point, very, very important. Stop thinking about pen testing or any sort of security assessment as a cost center. It's your business enabler, and it's investment into your future business. That's a starting point. It's very important, because if you choose this, your perception of everything in cybersecurity within the scope of your organization will be completely different. So I would definitely suggest this. Second, coming back to your question, what after pen testing? The proper pen testing reports, they're constructed the way you have a level executive summary, but also have lots of technical details saying what kind of vulnerability we found, why, where, what's the proof of concept, proof of exploitation, and obviously some recommendations. It's important that this is also circulated further within the organization, so right people know what to do with it. Just having the report, unless you only want to tick the box for compliance, that certainly will not be enough. But the outcome of the report should go to the right people, and the right actions should be taken with the results. We, for example, what we do, and we also recommend, is to have a workshop or have an open conversation. Once we deliver, especially a large report to the customer, we are very happy to just sit with them for a couple of hours with their security team, with their IT team, just talk meticulously one vulnerability after another and discuss, okay, we think this is high, right? This is our evidence for this. Are you happy with this? Do you understand why we think this is high? Why this medium level vulnerability? It's open conversation where it's not our intention to point a finger at you. We together want to make your organization stronger. So we are chipping in by providing this report, and now we want to be sure that you make the best value for money, but you take as much as you can from what we gave you. So that's I think recommended next step.
That's fascinating, because it's exactly mirrors what we see with other elements that of cybersecurity services that we deliver, whereby the next step really is for people to really go after the actions that we're highlighting. These are all the vulnerabilities. These are your misconfigurations. And it's for the network owners to go after those and improve that situation. When you get your pen test, take that report, don't file it away, look at it in detail, go back to the provider and say, how can I
ask
enhance
questions?
my situation?
Absolutely. Yeah. We are very happy to answer your questions. I was working with pen testing for many years in different organizations. Sometimes customers are calling after half a year and asking, page 23, we don't understand this. I said, all right, page 23, you have to find the report. And this is normal. This is absolutely normal. And we are happy to provide this information.
Yeah. Going back to the MOT analogy, your car fails an MOT, you can't keep driving it for 6 months and then ring them up and say, what's this about brake fade that you've mentioned in the report? Because to bring back to cybersecurity, that's 6 months where that vulnerability could have been exploited, and you've been holding a known risk that for that whole time. Has that been communicated to the board? Are they aware that you knew that there was that vulnerability in place that could have been exploited? Different question. How does that relate to people's insurance? There's all sorts of questions that this could throw up. Take that report and really in detail analyze it and try and figure out what the next steps are in conjunction with a great partner, which is absolutely what they would get if they were working with Risk Crew and your team, Aleks. I know that for a fact. Aleks, it's been really brilliant having this discussion. We've gone through the weeds of security testing, come out with interesting nuggets of conversations. If this has sparked any interest in penetration testing, want to find out any more, make sure you reach out through Red Helix or through Risk Crew. You can find us online on social media, or reach out to myself or Aleks directly. We'll be happy to talk you through anything that we've discussed today. There's certainly knowledge-based articles on both of those websites about security testing and the different types of security testing that we offer as a group of people. Aleks, it's been great to speak to you. I know that we'll have you on the podcast again. Thanks for listening, everybody, and look forward to more episodes where we'll continue to unpack cybersecurity terminology, the threat landscape and get interesting speakers just like Aleks to give us their thoughts on what's going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Take
Thank you
care.
very